Hello and welcome back. It's been a while since we caught up, so I'm gonna jump right into it. Our theme for today is on vineyards to vaults. And the topics I chose today are to help your mind stay focused when you have big goals that you want to achieve, and maybe they might be quite ambitious. In this club here, in this space, no goal is too ambitious, and we believe that with sacrifice, dedication, relentless pursuit, and a few other key personality traits, you can do whatever you want in this life within the frameworks and legalities, of course. Okay, so let's start with the Vineyard of Wealth. As you know, I do read a few notes from my iPad, so if you see me scrolling, it's from my blog to make sure I get the right message across. All right, so true wealth doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't come from grabbing whatever fruit happens to fall your way. It's cultivated carefully, intentionally, like a vineyard. Every vine hand selected, every harvest timed with patience, every bottle aged until it becomes something extraordinary. Now, if you love wine and you can really appreciate a good, crisp glass of wine, this chat is definitely for you. If you're not a wine lover, feel free to scroll on past and or stick around. Have a glass of wine even while you listen here. For me, I have really loved wines, and when it comes to wine tasting, wine pairings with certain meals, having that right combination really makes a huge difference. Some of the gifts I have given people have been specially selected bottles of wine too, because of how much I value a really lovely glass of wine. And then there are different occasions. So, at the beach, I feel like rosé or Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Grigio with ice or spritzer is always lovely, or on the ocean. And then with dinner, it could be something white or red. And if you're hanging out with friends, sometimes it is a little more cozy to go the red warm route. I believe in some winter countries, even they do mulled wines and warm wines. I'm not really a fan of those, but yeah. So this episode is about vineyards to vaults, and as we scroll through some mindsets, we'll share a few stories along the way and looking at a journey through the lives of icons who planted their sacrifices, harvested resilience, and bottled legacies that last lifetimes. Okay, so let's start with Warren Buffett, because as boring as some new money entrepreneurs might see like his process, I value that very slow, steady, routine personality trait where it's not too focused on out of the box, ego driven, proving I'm rich and successful, but more so it's methodical, his approach, and how he spends his time, counting his numbers, making the right moves, and really building up his habits and routine in a compounding manner that I really respect his investing route. And I feel that these seasoned professionals are worth mentioning because of their work ethic and investing style. Warren Buffett's life is a cellar of patience. He sold gum and soda as a child. This is what the research is bringing up that I'm reading out. If anything is wrong in this story, feel free to comment or make an edit or a fix. But this is what the information I have here is saying, because I don't know Warren personally. I would be happy to meet him one day. But if there's any information about anyone I speak of today that's inaccurate, please feel free to leave a comment or a note or a recommendation. Thank you. Okay, so he bought his first stock at just 11 years old and filed taxes before most of us finished middle school. His diet, because we will chat a few topics about diet here, because why not? We love staying fit, right? Surprisingly simple. He does probably like Trump still love their burgers, their Burger King, their Coca-Cola and whatnot. It's hardly a refined palate, but it's methodical, it's what they know, and it's how they are. But that's the beauty of his vineyard. It wasn't about flash, it was about compounding. His investments are vintage and chosen young, left to age, held with steady hands. Decades later, those bottles are worth billions. So, the lesson here to share is that patience is the sommelier of wealth. What you age carefully today becomes priceless tomorrow. Growing up, I've had a few personal experiences of getting my hands into a few parts of the wellness industry with meals that I would deliver to people's homes and salads, fitness training, working with Pilates, TRX, and then nutrition, working with people one on one and in groups for coaching and diet. So I got to see quite a few different paths in life as I met so many people and understand the needs of my ideal customer and consumer. Some of the lessons I have learned along the way might be valuable to you if you were starting off in this space, as I learned in high school that there would be a growing need for the nutritionist profession, and it didn't really exist so much 15 years ago. But now the number of health coaches and nutrition professionals is significantly gone up. And now schools are even considering putting nutrition as one of the main classes because humans need to learn basic human nutrition skills, for example. Okay, so number 2, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if you've heard of him as an actor or in the movies. He comes from like boxing and his movies and, gritty streets and typewriter keys. His story is interesting because he was living out of his car for a while. He had to sell his dog at the point of time in his career just to put food on his table. And he really went through the worst when it came to how he felt the media could benefit from his skill set. And I guess at the time, the media, with its strong stance on what they wanted to show for what was being created at that time. So he got rejected a ton. And basically, what they said was, we don't see a fit for you in this industry. So we don't know where to place you or hire you. We don't really recognize your skill set. But because he was so ambitious, he saw his vision clear and concise. And he said, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to have to do it all myself and create a market and make room for myself to bring this to the audiences. And it did sell out in the box offices, and I'm pretty sure if he's not a billionaire today, he's extremely successful. What I love about his story too is his comeback. He did eventually buy back his dog with his success, but his desire to get married, have one committed partner, and he really cherishes his family and his family values, and I find that extremely respectable, especially in today's world. So he just decided, he was going to survive on tuna and oatmeal. He poured everything, all his grit into Rocky, the production. The producers wanted his script, but they didn't want him in the movie. So he refused to sell because he wanted to play the role. That one refusal, that unshakable stand, turned rejection into an Oscar winning $1 billion franchise. Like, imagine that. And the lesson here is the richest wines often come from the harshest vineyards. Struggle presses the grape into something truly memorable and unforgettable. Now, I chose the vineyard as a thought for this journey that we are going on together through this story, because I could have chosen an orchard with apples or oranges or some other fruit. But the reason why I chose the vineyards, well, I'm blessed to have gone to a vineyard once in Chile. I was too young at the time to taste the wines, but I definitely have it on my to-do list. I would love to go. It's nothing like a crisp wine. Like, you can't compare it to anything else when you have an experience of a great wine. And there's nothing worse than a not great wine as well. So you really want to know the difference. And grapes are such a divine fruit because I love cold fruit, how juicy and refreshing. And because of the antioxidant value in wine too, we really love it, because in this day and age with cancer being on everyone's mind and being scared to get cancer, and I mean, there's just so many cancer stories out there that we love grapes for the antioxidant value, and of course wine does include that. While I'm not promoting drinking, I will say that there are portions and allowances for each human on every day, and staying within our portions for our body shape, size, figure is what is I will recommend from a nutritionist perspective, okay? Okay, next, Steve Jobs. The reason why I feel to bring up Steve Jobs as someone that I feel his name should be protected, even though he's not on this earth with us anymore long term, because the story is fascinating on its own. I watched the movies, and I remember clearly when we had the Motorola phones and my brother got one of the first iPhones, and I had to learn Mac, and my family were Dell family, but some of my best friends were Mac family. And I was curious about computers and studying, and I wanted to know everything. And we loved the games on the computers. So we would go to our friends' houses growing up and we would play games, computer games. In those days, like, every family had like one computer. And I thought that was a cool perspective. I didn't really mention Bill Gates really in this chat that I'm talking about today, but I will mention that he did have a good vision of wanting every household to have computers, because imagine back in those days, you would have to wait and line up and schedule in a family where there's parents and several offspring to get computer time. And now we have devices everywhere. So it's interesting to note the evolution of technology and some of the founding fathers from this stage, right? But what I love about Steve Jobs is he was able to see so clearly his product of forecasting into the future, years of the evolution of these technologies. I mean, think about the camera quality from the early iPhone and the camera quality to what we see now, how we have advanced. And it makes you wonder, were all those tools and technologies available 15 years ago? Or did they have to be designed alongside human evolution to be able to resonate with the human mind, to even conceptualize putting it together, but also taking the time out of our busy lives to learn the technology, to implement the technology, and to know how to use it efficiently, not just for communications, but now there's so many systems and processes and activities to do on our devices, right? All right, so he started pretty simple in his mom's garage. He had a few shakeups with his partners. He didn't want to sell himself short, and he really made a stance of how he wanted the investment and reinvestments to roll out in the future. After building, this is sometimes what happens when you invite some investors in and they come to scale your company. They kicked him out. They kicked him out and realized eventually they had no idea what to do with the product and they needed him. So they had to rehire him back. And it's just a lesson because greed is one of those things that could turn ugly and messy very quickly. And it's important to know that people who do great work, it's good to honor them. Like, there's really no need to act from primal envy instinct at the base level of the human evolution scale and just wiping people out left, right, and center. But I mean, he died of natural causes from cancer anyway, which is sad. But, that's kind of what that was. Steve Jobs' vineyard was one of simplicity, if we may say. His diet, extreme at times. He did a few fasts with fruit. He loved apples, clearly, carrots, and nuts. And he was quite a minimalist, as you can tell by his wardrobe. I still quite like some of these speeches I've heard him make early in his career with his wardrobe because I agree. When you want to show up to work and you want to get stuff done, it takes so much time having to go through a whole wardrobe to put together the right outfit. He wore the same outfit most of the time. And if he liked one shirt, he would buy like 10 or 15 or 20 of them and have a brand new clean shirt every day, but it's the same shirt. And in fashion world, you get comments like, oh, you're an outfit repeater and this and that. But some people see it as practical. And I agree with that because when you want your mind to be productive and focus on productive work, the last thing you want to do is have to run into decision fatigue sooner than necessary, right? So his minimalist discipline, I still love it. I still carry it forward in a lot of my ideas and thoughts, and the concept of reverse engineering products and releases, 20 years into the future, whereas people in the present having no idea what any of it's about until, their brains are able to evolve at the incremental time periods that they would allow themselves to or whatnot. It's fascinating and shows the real intelligence there. So I am totally love a lot of his ethos, and I support Mac products still because of that. Like, it's hard for me to consider switching into like a Samsung. Dell and I found, their battery always used to die early and then they had storage issues, whereas with these devices, I never get many issues. And if I do, the customer service is so good. They fix everything like so fast. And it continues to evolve in a way that works for everything. And I don't find glitches with the systems. And so it was just a genius product. And it still stands to this day that I will continue supporting Apple products because of how well they're made, how they last, they're reliable, and the customer service is always fantastic. Those things matter to me. And if you're here, in the Blueberry Billionaires Club, you probably have a good sense of what great customer service feels like. And you really want to avoid when it's like not great customer service. So I prefer to buy products and be in environments where the customer service is exquisite, and also to offer my groups and clients the same sort of high standards. So Jobs pruned technology ruthlessly, stripping away clutter only until it was clean, elegant, and vintage in the aesthetic that remained. And I love that because when I use these devices, I do get a sense from a creative background, but also from a scientific background, that it's a clean finish. It's the minimalist feel allows you to be operating on the devices with clear mind and have access to the right tools. I mean, imagine we started with just iPods, right? And then after iPods, we got wireless iPods. So we can walk around in the street with music on instead of, traffic noises. And sometimes growing up, it was so quiet, especially being in a small island. A girl like me would have dreamed to have The Walkmans were all right, but the Walkmans ended up just being phased out because they were big and bulky and nobody wanted to carry around all of that and the CDs, and it was just outdated. So what tended to happen with the iPod, they end up being sleek, efficient, plug it in, and there was a fun times until now the phone has it all integrated, right? But growing up as a little girl, I remember clearly, I wish I can just walk around in the wherever I'm going and I could put on music on demand. I loved music growing up, and I thought, what is this world without music? So his products have resonated from inception with me through life till now, and I'm so grateful. So when he was thrown out of his own company, he came back to replant, proving that when the soil is good, a vineyard can bloom twice as strong. So the lesson here is prune hard. Prune. I can talk about that word prune for a while too. Clarity creates vintages the world can't stop drinking. So drink up. All right, prune. So the word prune, I like it from a fashion sense where my cousin, who's a Miss World, had mentioned to me, remember when you're doing your photos, prune? And it's like a hold or a way of like putting yourself together. She mentors a lot of females, so we would chat about some of the topics she would chat about. And then in pruning in the Bible too, they say that through your spiritual like growth with spending time with your God of your own understanding, well, this is specifically to the Bible, but it allows you to be pruned in a way and likeness of what is your natural desire of why you were created to be on this earth. And what tends to happen is the amount of noise and distraction and chaos and clutter everywhere because of, I don't want to say hoarding, people who just like have a bunch of like random stuff and just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate with no order, sense, or fashion. That's just like a whole cluttered vibe that I don't agree with at all. But pruning allows you to really spend time fine-tuning, if I may explain it that way. And I love that for a word, so love that. Okay, so then there's Jack Ma, and his story is just phenomenal because, in the 90s, there were the internet cafes. Do you remember? Like, you would have to, at our yacht club, when we would go to travel around the world for sailing regattas, I remember walking around different places with my mom, and we would have to find an internet cafe and log on with the internet thing, and oh my gosh. So Jack Ma, at these times, he was rejected from 30 jobs, including KFC, right? 10 times Harvard said no, and he saw fertile ground where others saw wasteland on the internet. I guess also, America was known to be how people learn about capitalism and, providing great mass production and business empires and glamour of Hollywood. And I think my favorite part of America is definitely West Palm Beach. Like, I adore West Palm Beach. That was where I launched my book, and I was blown away. Like, it brought me to tears when I saw some of the hotels and the experiences there. It was just like all breathtaking. But anyway, so Alibaba, I guess coming all the way from Asia, was rejected in America. So he must have learned a lot with America through that experience to then take everything over back to Asia, and now is a multi-billionaire. And it's the same concept as Sylvester, I guess, because if there are already systems that are running and you have a vision, or you are one of those people that decides or is chosen to be super successful, and the doors you go on are all locked and shut, it really puts all the power in your hands, and you have to now build a whole system that works to then sell to the mass people, because there are gaps in markets that are to be filled. And yes, it could be a big responsibility, and it takes time and a lot of consistency and sacrifice and sleepless nights and early mornings, and there's a lot to it. But yeah, there we go. Then he's super successful, great family, and whatnot. So, like bamboo, that's how we describe him. He was planted, Alibaba, in that uncertain soil, and like bamboo in a video, it grew quickly, spreading across the globe, connecting farmers and small shops to international markets. So, the lesson here is when the world says your soil is barren, plant anyway. The sweetest vintages often start as the most unlikely wines. That's when it's interesting, and I don't know if maybe this should be communicated more in classrooms or private settings or even on public stages and media, where if you're a visionary or you get your mind planted, and we've heard this story on repeat so many times where society's like, oh, you're crazy, that'll never work, and it's always the same thing until you push through. I mean, it really doesn't have to be that way, like I just feel like that's so outdated. But it also makes you wonder, is it through that process of finding all the no's that you just flip into a space that you are like pushed into yes places, or could it be that through better guidance, it could be, well, this might not work here, but it might work there, because now we are connected, 8 billion of us in the world, different cultures, different styles, different work ethics, different living standards through technology. And what may not work in one area of the globe may thrive in another area of the globe. So you just never know, right? Okay, so let's look at Harrods, the Golden Vineyard. Harrods at night, it's one of those places when you travel to England, it feels good looking at it. It's a beautiful building. It has a good story. I spent a lot of my free time when I was living alone catching up on the Netflix docu-series and documentaries and autobiographies, because that was just what I felt to do. And Harrods had a feature on Netflix at the time, and I really enjoyed it. So the interiors are all with luxury. There are mixed reviews as to what people perceive Harrods, as of today. But I still love it. And it wasn't always a place of luxury. It began as a humble grocery, selling tea, fruit, basics. I feel like they also had a few fashion things in there for clothing, but it was quite basic, right? And the vision transformed it into a golden vineyard where ordinary produce evolved into extraordinary experiences. And today, Harrods is where grapes of everyday commerce age into vintage fit for royalty. If I lived in England and I was like a royal, I would call Harrods to cater like my meals for my family banquets and events. That would be so much fun, right? So the lesson here is reinvention can turn a corner shop into a palace and turn simple harvests into timeless reserves. The concept of timelessness is one that I really enjoy, because with the pace of a lot of trends that do change, it's really grounding to have that something that's always kind of constant in a crazy world, and it might come across that kind of stability as boring to many, but for someone like me who grew up in pretty unstable waters, that boringness, I love it. Next, Coco Chanel. So Coco Chanel from Paris, she has her timeless outfits that are there forever. Her brand still stands strong. And she went through quite a lot of life lessons in getting scrutinized a lot by the public, because in polite society, she was not really invited much, and she was kind of mocked for a while because she wanted to do what she loved. And I guess you can say, for context, that in polite society it's very traditional, so women don't really work. They're more just being housewives and supportive of their husbands and decorating in the home and whatnot. Whereas, especially at that time, it was even more controversial for women to do that. So, her life lessons is that she came from an orphan and she grew up, I think, in a nunnery, and lots of poverty, lots of rejection, and it distilled her into creating. She started with hats too. She started designing hats, and a lot of the celebrities and women of high society liked her things so much she started designing for them and turned it all into timeless vintages of elegance. She pruned away at the heavy excess of her time, creating simplicity that became eternal. I mean, that is every brand owner's dream, I think. Like, if you really go into building a brand and setting intentions of what you want your brand to be and be conceived of by the world, that's definitely some core values I feel that would be great to decide on. And her little black dress, and Miss Dior is one of my favorite perfumes from her. I've been wearing not Dior, Chanel perfumes for a while. It was Chance, and then she has like her Chanel number 4, 5, 1, 2, like a few numbers. And all the time, her fragrances are divine, for an everyday light feel or for an evening wear, really lovely, never overgrown. The lesson is the most enduring vintages aren't loud, they're distilled. Simplicity creates wines that never expire. And when you come across one of those aged bottles and you have that, it is like, chef's kiss. Nothing. In terms of the pleasure scale, I'm sorry, but on that pleasure scale, that aged bottle of wine is just, oof. Next, Audrey Hepburn. I brought her up because, we all know Breakfast at Tiffany's, and she was such a cute actress. And I researched into her as a nutritionist. When I learned of her style, people used to comment about me that I reminded them of Audrey Hepburn. So I was like, well, who is this girl? And then I realized she was an actress. And I was like, well, what does she eat to stay so slim? Back in the day, obviously, the slim diet was a bottle of Coca-Cola, a cigarette, and some toast. And that is what it was. So all of the models, the small women keeping their waistline small, were smoking cigarettes, drinking Coca-Cola, coffee, and eating toast. And I thought that was interesting. So they had the war, and the war left Audrey Hepburn starving, surviving on tulip bulbs. Later, she embraced simple pleasures like pasta, vegetables, gardens. But her real vineyard was her grace. She poured herself into acting, becoming cinema's most elegant vintage. And when her glass overflowed, she gave it back, dedicating her later years to UNICEF. I mean, we're going to have to fact check that one. I can't imagine that was around in her time, but this is what this says. So definitely fact check on that. So the lesson here is the rarest vintages aren't hoarded in cellars, they are shared with the world. The resilient vintage, Liza Minnelli. She's another one. I watched her on Netflix, and these stories, as a young lady myself, really inspired me to keep going. And people ask, what are you doing? What are you focused on? Why aren't you out? Why aren't you with babies? What are you doing? And I can relate so much to these women because they had dreams and they wanted to do acting and fashion and whatnot, and they got a lot of I want to say tumultuous as a word, but it was a tumultuous experience for them. So she faced many stories, health struggles, public scrutiny, endlessly reinventing herself. And she got role after role after role. She kept slim, she kept beautiful, she got the roles eventually when she got in, and up until like her 90s, I believe she was still relevant. And I was like, yeah, girl, whatever you're doing, I'm gonna do those things because I've seen people age in their 90s very unhealthy and bedridden. And coming from the Caribbean, our life expectancy, we didn't see many people living that long growing up. And seeing my genetics of my family living into their 90s really kept me mindful of deciding how I would make decisions in the now that might compound for me in the future in a very positive return. So to me, habits also compound. I think that might have been from either 5 a.m. Club the Book or Atomic Habits, but yes, habits compound. And Liza's performances when she got on stage were, resilience, dramatic, bold, and again, unforgettable. So storms don't ruin vineyards, they define the strength of their roots. All right, so we chatted a lot. The reason why I felt this is relevant is because if you have, let's say, 100 or 150 pounds to lose, let's say that's your goal, and you're like, well, everyone around me says I look fine. And even though the doctor says my cholesterol's up and I have heart disease and my family has a medical history of heart attacks and obesity and stroke and Alzheimer's or dementia, my friend group said it's fine to drink beers every weekend and, everyone accepts me for who I am. But deep down inside, when I look in the mirror, I do feel like I want to be slim. And deep down inside, when I put on my clothes, I find it is stressful to find things to fit me. And if you feel like that, then there's a good chance that you're going to have to start using material available to keep you focused and aligned with your goal, because when you do succeed in a goal like that, whether your community is into health and fitness or not, you doing this for yourself will have a significant positive impact in the future for you. So it really doesn't matter sometimes whether they're doubters or if they say diets are fads and diets don't work. The truth is, having healthy behaviors and routines is proven to line you up for a better way of living in your body. And what we say as nutritionists, well, there are two things we say. The first one is your body is your vehicle. So if you love buying Aston Martin cars and Audis and Ferraris and you love, luxury vehicles, Porsche, Rolls Royce, whatever your fancy, Maseratis, whatnot, and you are not putting the right fuel into the vehicle, which is your body, that actually transports you around, that you have to live in every day, the fuel that you put into that vehicle, as in your body, is very important. And the same way, you're not going to want to put diesel or some weird fuel in your beautiful luxury cars. You want to put the right fuel in your body as well. And that's what nutritionists are here for, right? To help you fuel in the best way possible. And the next thing we say is, when it comes to your wellness, as selfish as people may call you or judge you or criticize you, because that is human nature, and yes, we would like the collective to evolve. And, in due time, I'm sure people are going to catch up to upgraded ways of thinking and operating. But for now, people do operate at quite low levels of human behavior and intelligence. It is that if you're on an airplane and the flight attendant walks by and says, put on your oxygen masks, She always says, put on yours first before you attend to someone else. And so many times, I do speak to a lot of moms and caregivers, it's that they are quick to put oxygen masks on everyone else. And I probably have done this myself too. So I also have to remind myself this too, because I'm such a great coach to everyone. I'm like, where is me? Back to me. But I guess here I am, right? So it's always put your own oxygen mask on first so that you can breathe and then you can help someone else. Because, and unless you're like just super selfish and you just only put yours on and don't care to help other people, but that's a whole other level that we're not going to get into, because hopefully we don't really come across those types of people, because in a community, yes, self-importance is important because you need to be breathing and healthy and fit to serve or do whatever. But there's also a good balance of contributing, right? So, in closing, whether we are talking about stock exchange, diet, the food industry, global cities, vineyards, or building luxury cellars, what we can take away from this is Buffett's patience, Stallone's grit, Jobs' clarity, Ma's resilience, Harrod's reinvention, Chanel's refinement, Hepburn's grace, Manelli's resilience, and these are vineyards of life and wealth. And health is also tied to wealth. Cheap grapes make quick, forgettable wine, and usually they're disgusting to drink. So I'm the kind of person where I would rather not drink than drink or eat anything that I don't love, or like it's not even like possible. But when it's something good, you really want to indulge in that. So if you drink it fast, it's gone, but the finest vintages, the fortunes that last, are cultivated with sacrifice, aged with discipline, and secured in vaults for generations. Wealth isn't in quick pours, it is in the vineyard. So you want to cultivate wisely, age it carefully, and when storms come, don't sell the vines. That's how you scale wealth, not just to earn it, but to secure it forever. There was another concept, people win the lottery all the time, right? And there's a concept of, if you gain a bunch of money fast or quickly, most humans aren't capable of holding that down and multiplying it. Because the journey and the process that you're refined through to build wealth, to build that income in slow incremental levels, really allows you to hold more and more over time and understand how to move it, store it, and strategically place it in areas that make sense and have value to you as a portfolio owner, versus you get something quick, it's very likely that it leaves quick, right? So that's why you talk to lottery winners and they might win $1 million. Next, they spent it and they're broke again. So that's not really the qualities and mindsets and habits and experiences we cultivate here in the Blueberry Billionaires Club, for example, with my Green Balance. But we do appreciate the slow, incremental efforts and consistency to have larger compound effect and to secure something forever. Now, if this story inspired you, don't just have a sip of wine, join us. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share this video with anyone you might know who might also appreciate these notes of wisdom. And visit our online store for some shopping if you would like to increase your sweater weather wardrobe. We've got hoodies, trackies, comfy clothes for the season that you could snuggle up in as you are on your health journey. There is nothing better sometimes than snuggling up in one of your favorite outfits. We have designed hand-selected premium pieces curated with the same patience and care that builds lifelong wealth and health. So when you shop with us, you know you're in the right hands. Because here we don't chase quick fruit. We acquire, we age, we secure, and together we'll fill your cellar not just for today, but for generations. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope that we are back on track with filming and quality being assured. And I hope you love this chat as much as I loved having it with you. And until next time, I'm Anik. Welcome to the Blueberry Billionaires Club, officially or unofficially. But if you stuck around this long, great. Bye.